we are going to create a new project that will demonstrate the concept of inheritance. Let us create a new project, and I'm going to call this as inheritance demo. So we created a new Windows project, and here we are going to add a new class, and I'm going to call this class as employee. The employee class, I'm going to have a data members, which is going to store the name of the employee, job title, and his salary. So first one is a name, which is a string, and we made it as a private member, so I could not access this outside the employee class. So I'm going to have another member job title, and the third one is double salary. Since salary is a number, numeric field, we'll make it as double. And let's create a constructor. The constructor, I'm going to make it as a public constructor. There is no parameter. This is the default constructor. And let's create another constructor with the parameter. So I'm going to pass the name and job title. The salary we are going to calculate, so we are not going to assign the salary when we create the object. So only the name and the job title, and we'll set the salary as 0 as a default value. So this is our parameterized constructor, where we'll send two parameters, and this is going to assign the two members to the data fields, and salary will make it as 0. Now I'm going to create another class. I'm going to create a new class, which is going to be a full-time employee. So this is a full-time employee, and in the full-time employee, he is going to have a name. He's going to have a name. He's going to have the job title, and he's going to have the salary. And I'm going to set the name and job title and the constructor. In addition to this, they will have the basic pay, allowance and deduction, which is used to calculate the salary. But the name, job title and salary are already declared in employee class. So instead of we rewrite all this code again in our full-time employee, we could reuse the code reusability. That's one of the biggest advantage of having inheritance. So we can use the code in the existing class to the new class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inherit the employee to the full-time employee. How do you do the inheritance? After your class name, give a colon and give the name of your base class. So this is the syntax of inherit a class from another class. So class, your class name, colon, base class. So full-time employee is our class name, and our base class is employee. So in this case, employee is the base class and full-time employee is the derived class. So all our public members could be accessed in the full-time employee, but the private is only for the employee. It could not be accessed by the full-time. So what it means, for example, let us create some method here. We create some method, and if I want to access the base class members, I could use the keyword base dot. Now I could not see any of the members in the base class because all of them are private. Let's change one of it to public. Now if you give base dot, you could see name, but the job title and salary is not shown because name is public, the rest are private. So I can set the name from here. Yes, but the problem of giving a data member as a public is it could be accessed by any object. It's not only within the class methods, it can be accessed anything from outside the class. For example, in our form, let's say I'm going to create a button, and when the user click this button, I'm going to create an object of employee. So I'm going to create a new employee object, and when I say e dot, I could see the name here. Means name is accessed by any of the object which is outside the class, which we don't want to happen. We don't want our name to be accessed by anybody else. So the only option is we'll make it as private. But if we have it as a private, then our child class cannot access it. So in this case, I want my data member to be accessed by the child, only by the child, and not by other outside objects or the classes methods. So how do we do that? So there is a third modifiers which we will be using here, which is called as protected. When you make a member as protected, it could be accessed by their own class and the class which derived this class, but not outside. So if you look at this, our name is protected, and let's say change this as public, job title as public, and salary is private. Now when I go to the derived class, if I say base dot, I can see the name and job title, but I could not see the salary because salary is our private member. And if you go to the form in the button, if I try to access e dot, I can see only the job title which is a public, but I cannot see the name because name is not shown in the button, but instead it was shown here in our derived class. So a protected member can be accessed from the same class and the derived class. Not any other class can access this. A public member can be accessed by anybody, and private is only to that class. It cannot be even accessed by the derived class. So in our case, I want my members to be accessed by the child but not the rest. So let us change all the members to protected. instead of private, I'm changing all this to protected. So my name, job title and salary can be accessed by the child, but not any other methods. So in our full-time employee, which is derived from employee, I could access job title, name and salary. You could notice the star here. This means it's a protected class, but I could not access it from other than the child. In the form, when I say e dot, I could not see any of the members because all are protected. Now let's continue with this. Let me remove this one. So here our full-time employee has name, job title and salary. In addition, I'm going to have basic pay, allowance, and deduction. So basic pay, allowance and deductions are for the full-time employees. They are private member and the type of this is double since they are numbers, money. Now I want to create a full-time employee constructor. So I'm going to create a default and when I say a default constructor, I'm going to set the basic pay, allowance and deduction, but how about the name, salary and the job title? So we have already a constructor in our base class, so we can use the constructor here. So what I do is, if you remember, base is the keyword to use the base class. So we have this base colon base, which means I'm saying that the constructor is inheriting the constructor of the base class. Let's create a parameterized constructor. I'm going to have a constructor which is a public method, and I'm going to pass the name of the employee, job title and his basic pay and his allowance and the deduction. Now I could set base dot name equals to name, base dot job title equal to job title, base dot with salary I'm going to set 0. I can do this one, but we already have this code in our base class. So instead of rewriting all these things, I could call them using the base class constructor. So what you do is you put a colon, then base of. So what are the parameters I'm going to pass? So if you see here, it has two. One is default constructor, other constructor with the parameterized name and job title. So I can pass the name and the job title. So what this will do here, this will, when you call the constructor for the full time, it will call the base constructor, the parameters base constructor, and set the name, job title and salary. So we would set only the basic pay, allowance and the deduction. So since we already have the code in the base class, we no need to rewrite them here. So this is one of the advantage of inheritance. All right, now I'm going to create a new method which is going to calculate the salary of the full-time employee. So I'm going to make this as a public method, and it does not return any value. The name of the method is calculate salary, no parameter, and inside this, how do we calculate the salary? So salary is from your base. So if you noticed, I didn't give base dot salary, but still I can access the salary. Salary will be equals to the basic pay of the employee plus all his allowance and subtract the deduction from this. So that's all. So this is how we calculate the salary of full-time employee. Add the allowance and basic pay and subtract the deduction from it. Right. Now we need something to display the details of this employee. So I'm going to create a method called, which is going to return a string get employee details, which will return a string. Let us create a new string details. So details will be equals to employee name with his job title and his salary. So I'm going to just give these three details. So since we are going to give only these three details, name, I'm going to return this details to the calling method. Since we have only this one, name, job title and salary, we could have done this in our employee class, so that whichever class inherits from the employee will have this method get employee details. So let us cut this one here, and in the employee I'm going to add this. So this is a public public method get employee details. Now when you see this calculate salary, all the classes that is going to inherit from the employee is going to have this method calculate salary, but the body would be different. So we could declare the method calculate salary in our employee class, that is the base class. So let's open the employee class, and I'm going to declare without parameters, and inside this body we just give salary is 0. We don't do the calculation in the base class. The calculations are done in the derived class. So base class, we know he is an employee, but we don't know whether he is a full-time employee or a part-time employee. Based on the full-time employee and part-time employee, our calculation is going to differ. So in the full-time employee, I need to tell that this calculate salary is a method from the base class. I am overriding. Overriding means I'm going to hide the base class method and use the same name to implement different thing in our method. So to make a method as override method in the base class, we need to give a keyword called virtual. So when you say this class is virtual, this method is virtual, this method could be override from the child. So go to the child class, and I want to tell this method is overriding the method in the base class. So use the keyword override. So our method name is same, it has the same parameter, but the implementation is different than the employee class. Now we have this full-time employee which is derived from the employee, and in additional to the employee we have the basic salary, allowance and deduction, and we have this default constructor and the parameters constructor. Both are calling the base constructors, and we have implemented the calculate salary in the child class. Now let me create another class. I'm going to call this as part-time employee. A part-time employee, I'm going to derive this from the employee class, which means whatever protected and public members in the employee is going to come for part-time employee. In addition, I'm going to have some private members. I'm going to have hours work, and I'm going to also have another member rate per hour, and we are going to have the public constructors, a default constructor which is also going to call the default constructor of our base class, and I'm going to have another constructor which is a parameterized constructor that I'm going to call or pass two parameters, hours work and hourly rate, and in addition we are also going to pass the name of the employee and job title. So we are going to call the base constructor which is passing the name and the job title, which will set the name, job title and salary using the base constructor, and here we are going to set the hours worked and the rate per hour. And I'm going to implement the override the calculate salary. If you notice that you have this automatically, you have the method which is calling the base calculate salary, but I don't want anything to be here. I just going to calculate the salary as hours worked times the rate per hour. So if you call the calculate salary of the part-time employee, the implementation is different, and if you call the calculate salary of full-time employee, the implementation is different, but the method name and parameters are the same. This concept is called as polymorphism. When you call calculate salary for full-time employee, it do different, and for when you call the calculate salary for part-time employee, it do different. Now finally we go to our form and let's create two employees, full-time employee and we will have another button for the part-time employee. So we have the full-time employee and part-time employee, and let's add a list box to display the details of our employees. And when you click on the button 1, that is full-time employee, I'm going to create a object of full-time employee. I'm going to call it as manager full-time employee, and I'm going to pass the parameters like name of the manager and his job title and the basic pay, allowance and deduction. So I forgot the keyword new. Whenever you need to create a new object, use the new keyword. And I'm going to create a so I'm going to calculate the salary of the manager, and in the list box we are going to get the details of the manager. It's in the employee get employee details, and in the list box I'm going to add this manager details. So let's do the same for other button, but this time I'm going to use the part-time employee, new part-time employee. I'm going to give a name and this time I'm going to pass the number of hours he worked and the hourly rate. So he have worked like 200 hours and the rate per hour is 15.60. So I'm going to declare a variable to get the cleaner details, and I'm going to calculate the salary of cleaner details, and I'm going to get the employee details of the cleaner, and in our list box I'm going to add the cleaner details. Let us try to execute and see this. When you click on the full-time employee, you can see lead manager and his salary is 45,000, and for the part-time employee Abir, who is cleaner, and his salary is 3,120. We have an employee class with 3 data members: name, job title and salary, which are protected members so that it can be accessed only by the class and its child. We have a default constructor, parameterized constructor, to set the name and job title and salary as 0, and we have a get employee details, which will return the name, job title and salary. Full-time employee class, which is derived from the employee class. In addition to the members of the employee, we have basic pay, allowance and deduction. We have the default constructor, which is calling the base constructor, and we have the parameterized constructor, which is calling the base constructor, and we override the calculate salary method, which add the basic and allowance and deduct the deduction. And we have the part-time employee, which is also derived from the employee class. In addition to the employee class, we have this hours worked and rate per hour. We have the default constructor, parameterized constructor, and in the calculate salary implementation, we multiply the rates per hour and hours worked to calculate the salary. It's an override method, and we did a form with 2 buttons and a list box, and the user click the full-time employee. I create an object of full-time employee with some parameters and calculate the salary of the manager and get the employee details and display it in the list box. And for the part-time employee, I calculate the salary of the part-time employee and get the details and display in the list box. So if you noticed here, manager.calculate salary and cleaner.calculate salary are override, and the calculation is different, and the employee details, get employee details for the cleaner and the manager are from the base class.